Hi, this is Mary Kopczynski, the CEO of RegAlytics, with your update on this week's 26,454 regulatory alerts, a record low for this time of year, clearly impacted by the U.S. federal government shutdown, which leads us to our obvious topic of the week, the U.S. government shutdown. We've tracked 267 alerts referencing the shutdown over the past week, and these include agency service suspensions, staffing changes, emergency relief measures, and state-level interventions that are aimed at mitigating the fallout. Not to mention, we've seen all sorts of error messages coming from the federal agency websites, and of course, not all of them have the same tone. The Census Bureau posts, "Due to the lapse in federal funding, this website is not being updated." The EPA warns some services may be temporarily unavailable. The National Institutes of Health notes grant processing and research communications may be delayed. But then you see much more pointed messaging elsewhere. For example, HUD has a banner on its website reading, "The radical left in Congress shut down the government." Other federal sites have echoed this kind of messaging, blaming the Democrats explicitly for the funding lapse, but obviously some agencies are remaining neutral. As for the states, depending on their political alignment, they either call it the Democrat shutdown or the Republican shutdown, and it's striking how the same federal event gets framed so differently depending on the speaker and the color of their state. Beyond politics, however, some states are focused on the more practical impacts of the shutdown. For example, Maryland's Department of Labor launched a no-interest loan program for federal workers living in Maryland to help them survive during the freeze. In Washington state, the Department of Health warns that the shutdown may jeopardize the Women, Infant, and Children Nutritional Program, which provides nutrition support for pregnant women, infants, and children. If funding lapses in the next 2 weeks, WIC benefits may be suspended, and that is immediately harmful. You can't really skip infant nutrition for 2 months and then get it repaid later, right? The regulator of the week is the IRS. So continuing with our One Big Beautiful Bill review, let's dig into Section 70607, the Task Force on the Replacement of Direct File. So this section deals with how Americans file their taxes, whether through private companies like TurboTax, H&R Block, or whatever, or if they file directly with the IRS on the IRS direct filing platform. Backstory required. So way back in 2003, the IRS made a deal with commercial tax software providers via what is called the Free File Alliance. In exchange for the IRS not building its own free file system, software vendors would offer free filing to low and middle income taxpayers. Over time, this became a controversial issue. Specifically, in 2019 to 2022, some of these free options were buried, confusing, or so conditional it was misleading, and I actually reported on these in episodes 29, 51, and 228 of the Regulatory Roundup dating back to July of 2020. New York DFS uncovered a huge omission by the big tax companies, including Intuit, H&R Block, and others, because they deliberately hid the website landing pages for the free file program. Then, in January of 24, TurboTax got busted big time by the FTC for claiming to be free when just a tiny fraction of its customers actually qualified for free services. And that wasn't the only issue. The usage was super low. Only about 3% of eligible taxpayers actually used it. So in 2024, under the Biden administration, the IRS moved ahead and launched a direct file pilot, which was a free government-run platform for taxpayers in specific states with very simple tax situations could file direct. And the pilot exceeded expectations. 140,000 people filed, and 90 million in refunds were issued, and 5.6 in filing fees were saved. But the private firms did not like this. They saw this as an existential threat to their core business. So Section 70607 of the One Big Beautiful Bill now puts forth $15 million to have a task force investigating a better public-private partnership. And that's it this week for RegAlytics. We have the global supply chain of the world's regulatory alerts in one very easy to use place. If you need a solution for anything related to regulation, give us a call.